Hi, I'm Nick Arganbright. I'm the creator of Boondoggle on Kickstarter right now, and you're watching Two Geeks Talking. Did I get that?
Yeah,
Did
that's
do?
good.
Okay. You're like, I don't know how much more of these I can have him do.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a returning guest. He has been on the show in the past, all the way back in 2014, ironically, because I had to look at the Google's Hangouts to see when we literally talked last. He is, of course, the host of The Good, Bad, and the Geeky. He is also does, this has already been done, Radio Hour. And he is talking about his brand new Kickstarter campaign and comic, Boondoggle, which I've just backed as well, just as a heads up, and you should too. We'll post the link in the description below once we're done the interview. We are, of course, joined by the ever-talented Nick Arganbright. How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing really good, Kurt. How about you?
Not too bad. So I cracked up on that Google Hangouts chat.
No, yeah, that's awesome. When you were saying before, like 2014, I was like, oh my goodness, it has been that long. That's awesome. Thank you for having me on, man. I'm excited.
Anytime. You know, we have a lot to catch up on. You've done so much in the past. We should get to, but we'll start with, of course, the most important factor. Tell us about Boondoggle and tell us what that's all about.
Sure. So Boondoggle is the story of a little Shalonian, which is a little humanoid turtle named Boonford T. Doggle, aka Boon, who has been raised by his grandmother, and he stumbles upon this ancient alien artifact, which if you would show you or I, it would look like a little protractor. But to them, it's an ancient alien artifact, and they realize that Boone could save the family farm if he finds a buyer for it, like on the not black market trade, but sell it, get it out there. And in the process, though, he finds out that apparently this little protractor like artifact might be something more important, and there are other people after it, and he runs into strange creatures, bounty hunters, and more. And he has like two companions that are with him to kind of help guide him, with very different outlooks on life, because Boone is very naive and very just good-hearted, and he's not really been outside his small village of Ambersgard. And then but his companions, Opal and Ozzy, they are very world weary, and they're very much not trusting of other people, not trusting of each other, and think Boone might be a little over his head, and he might actually be. So but that's kind of what the story's about.
Awesome. How did this come about, though? Because it sounds like a wonderful tale. I'm loving the artwork. I'm loving what I've seen, and by the way, a great video as well on a Kickstarter too. But how did you come about all of this?
So I can't say too much, only because what's tied to the idea is very spoilery.
Oh, okay.
But it's okay. But I will say this: I live in Columbus, Ohio, here in the States, and my wife is from Cleveland, Ohio, right near Lake Erie. And so we were visiting her, and on the way back, if I'm not driving, I have a little bit more control of the radio. And I was, and sometimes when you listen to the radio, you just hear a song that really speaks to you, and you just start looking at the scenery passing you by. And for some reason, it just hit me that there's this little guy, this little humanoid turtle, and he's traveling on this adventure with this girl with this big sword, and that's all I had. There's something else there that I'm leaving out, obviously, for spoiler purposes, but that's kind of the point. And I was like, instead of there being a Taco Bell there, it's kind of like, there's just land, kind of like Lord of the Rings kind of traveling. And I was just seeing it as I was going by the scenery, the fields and the hills and all that, and I got very excited for that. And then I started writing that down and trying to put that into into perspective of what's the story here, how does it get to this point, when this one thing happens, what does that lead to, and so on and so forth, and kind of go from there.
It's amazing how inspiration kind of hits you. That's the one thing I've loved about doing this show, is finding those that are passionate about what they love doing, whether it's music or comics or whatever. And I'm glad to see something as simple as a travel between cities can draw inspiration like that. I think that's pretty awesome.
It's one of those things too. I'm a big fan of music, so I get inspired by music all the time. For like, usually it happens like it's really weird. I'm a very visual guy with things, and so I'll see it almost as like a montage, in a movie or a TV show. That's how I view it. And the sad thing is I can't remember what song it was I was listening to when I thought of it, but it's a song that just kind of had that thing where it's like it just felt like it would be in a montage for something where for all I know it could have been on, was it Send Me On My Way by Rusted Root, you know what I mean? But it has that kind of vibe of you're just traveling along, and that's what just spoke to me. But that kind of thing happens all the time with other little things. I might not know what the characters are, but I just know, oh, there's some characters traveling or doing something, or they're responding in a certain way. It's weird, but music seems to be tied for me on some of those things, and I love music, so it's nice too, because I get something else out of it beyond just that little inspiration.
You're not the only one that said that too. It's funny because Ryan Hudson, actually from Channel 8, said the same thing. He's a musical guy as well too, and he's like, yeah, sometimes I'm just jamming away and the inspiration just hits me. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
And it's so fun because you are jamming away, so that's part of the fun right there. And then you're also getting a flood of other memories that the song has made an impact in your life. Or sometimes it could be superficial things. Other times it can be like really big things, which is kind of fun. But then there's that one little second, because our mind works so fast, that it just pops in there, kind of like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It just popped in there. What just popped in there? Well, a little humanoid turtle walking across the countryside, like, same kind of thing. So, I'm equally fascinated by that too. I really love, I'll watch YouTube videos and stuff like that on the craft of writing and building a story, conflict, plot versus story, and what those things, and I'm fascinated by that. And so part of that is like, where do you get your ideas from?
But I always find it's difficult when it comes to writing though, because I've been working on screenplays and everything else like that for a while, and it gets to the point where sometimes you just get stuck on a concept or an idea, or you write yourself into that corner. I mean, how do you deal with stuff like that?
I'm not gonna lie, that I feel like there is no answer for that, and there's no wrong answer for that either, in terms of each writer is going to attack that a different way. Like, there was a pitch I was writing on for something for someone else's property, and I got stuck myself on something like, well, how did we get here? And if you looked at the story blocks, like, because I feel like I tend to be, not to short credit my own work, but I tend to be better at what are the story beats that you need to hit to get to from A to Z. Mm-hmm. I'm good at that. And then I'm always trying to improve my dialogue and that kind of thing. Yeah. But sometimes I was like, I know I need to get to Z because it is a natural progression. It's how the characters have built. It's how the direction we're going. But I got a little stuck on, well, this part that should be next, it's kind of hitting a wall. And then I realized it could be that how I got there, is maybe not the greatest. So I had to maybe look at that, or I maybe had to think of something else of, well, what am I doing in that moment that is leading to that brick wall? Or do I just need to step away for a bit and come back to it? And sometimes it can be a variation of any of those. I'm a big believer in, and I'm going to misquote this, so I apologize, but I have printed off on the other side. I actually, weirdly enough, put it in front of my work cubicle so I can just always look up and read it, because I'm working from home from my normal 9-to-5 job because of the pandemic. But I will look up at it, and it's the 20 Rules of Pixar for writing a story, and then Billy Wilder's 10 Rules for a Screenplay. And the big one from both of them, and they kind of say the same thing, which is, if you have a problem in your third act, everything's tied to your first act, that kind of thing. And sometimes you should always try to have an idea of where you're going versus not going anywhere at all, stuff like that. But the other big thing is, let the audience guess 2 + 2 = 4. They'll love you for it. Just don't come right out and say, duh, this is going to be 4. You don't want to do that.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing how screenplays and Pixar films, how movies and comics just go hand in hand when it comes to this stuff.
Oh yeah. And what's really weird with some comics, like there are some artists that do monthly books and that are like big names. Like it's usually Bendis, one that comes to mind the most for me, and maybe Mark Waid. Kind of those are writers that they do whatever they want in their books. I feel like sometimes, like even not just at Marvel, DC, wherever, where they can take their time with pacing, and usually with big names. Like I'm a big fan of Dan Slott, the writer. He primarily works for, I think he still 100% works for Marvel, but I'm a big Spider-Man fan. So when he wrote Spider-Man, he to me rejuvenated the character. Like I fell in love with Spider-Man all over again. But one of the things that he did that I noticed, and it took me a while to realize what he was doing, is that he kind of has a very old school vibe to him in terms of how he writes the book. It's not like Bendis or these other guys, which they do very good too. But like if I had to ask you, well, what happened in that issue of All New X-Men #3? It's like, oh, they just sat around and talked. Granted, fantastic stuff. Like there's drama and pathos and comedy and all that stuff there. But if you ask what happened in that Dan Slott book, well, first off, they reintroduced every character so you know who they are real quick, like within like the first 4 pages. They also have like maybe 7 action sequences, and it's the old school, like they finish setting up the previous issue, you know, they tie off that loose end kind of
like previously on.
Yeah, previously on. They tie that up, or you know, get that over with, and that sets up the plot for that issue, and then it ends on kind of a cliffhanger, which will be resolved hopefully the next issue. That kind of thing. And it's all in like 23, 25 pages, and it's breathless, and it's really fun and exciting. I wish I could do that. I tend to lean more towards and I hate putting myself in that category because, you know, it's Michael Bendis, but I tend to be on that. Like I like having slower conversations and pacing and stuff like that to delve into the character stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm even in awe of how like people like Dan Slott do what they do, because it's amazing.
But sometimes it's necessary though to slow the pace down, because if you think of every page as your scene, or every page is your scene, I should say, thinking from a film perspective, you know, a simple matter of action takes up 1 page, but a simple matter of a conversation that has great detail could either be a diatribe of words, or word diarrhea, as I like to call it, or it's actually meant as a monologue or whatever, and to whatever works. But from a comic perspective, from your writing for, say, Boondoggle, for this particular book, which is 110 pages at that, which is incredible. You know, you can only write your own style.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Like when Slott, for example, left and did Fantastic Four, there's still a similar vibe of how the book is paced. Same thing with Bendis. Like I followed Bendis over and read the first, I think, 20 issues of his run of Superman, and I'm not a DC guy. Like I have problems with their continuity of stuff. Like I love the characters. Like I love Batman, Superman, but I don't love the continuity of how DC does stuff sometimes. And so it's harder for me to jump in willy-nilly. While Marvel, I feel like I've always had like a foot into Marvel. So like even if I haven't read like the Avengers title in like 10 years, I can jump into it and go, oh, I kind of know what's going on. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but yeah, and so you can definitely pick that apart. And I think for me too, yeah, I like the character beats, the character moments. And I get another nod from which, and technically they got their nod from somebody else. So I'm a big fan of Eastman Laird, who created the Ninja Turtles. Because I did Ultimate TMNT, and they were big fans of Jack King Kirby,
of course.
And I've gone back and read, I think it's the Elementals. It's one of the cosmic Marvel titles that he did.
Yeah, Elementals, I believe.
Yeah, and like some of the pacing is really good. Like in terms of the layout alone, the storytelling craft there is really good. And so I'm kind of all over the place with some of my pacing and stuff, but I try to get to those smaller character moments and reveal themselves. So
I mean, you also have, not only with your writing though, you also have some great supporting members, of course, with your artists and with your other crew too. So
oh my God,
I mean,
yes.
It's always a team effort when it comes to making book. So who else is working with you?
The primary person working on the book with me is Nil Carmona, who is based in Barcelona, Spain. And I found him on, oh my gosh, I think it's called ArtStation. I feel really bad that I don't remember that right now. But if you go to our Kickstarter, though, his portfolio link to that is in under the personnel side. So please check his stuff out. He is really, really good. But I wanted a unique design to things, and when I looked at some of his drawings in his portfolio on ArtStation, it just popped out. And one of the big things I asked him was like, well, because all his drawings are mostly like very strange creatures and designs, which is needed for this alien world that they inhabit in Boondoggle, right? But how do you draw humans, kind of thing? And so when he sent me back the stuff for like Ozzy, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I was already loving what he was trying to, some of the designs he was approaching with Boone and all that. So so Nil Carmona is another one. Another one who's helping us out with some of the prints and coloring for like the cover, Cortland Brugger. Cortland has done work for Image Comics. He TMNT covers with Frank Fosco and those guys. He's done some backup stories with, I think, Frank for Savage Dragon that are at the end of the Savage Dragon books. I think he's done like maybe 3 or 4 of those.
Awesome.
So that's kind of cool. We have a great team working on the book that they're helping make the project what it is. So really helpful.
So what was it about your artist's work that kind of drew your attention? Because I mean, obviously when you're on a site like ArtStation or whenever you're searching for an artist, obviously you have, the brain just either clicks on someone in the first 10 seconds or you're just constantly moving to the next one. So what was it about his work?
It's hard. I wish I had a really, really, really good answer for that. Because it was one of those things that I looked at and I was like, oh, this guy would be really good drawing like Hellboy, is what my first instinct was. Because he kind of has these nice angular lines that kind of remind you of Mike Mignola. And my first, I'm not gonna lie, my first instinct was, I don't know if he would be good for Boondoggle, but I definitely made a note of it because I loved his art style and I would love to work with him on something. And I saw that he posted something more recent. I feel like it was this weird like lizard creature, like horse thing. I don't think I'm describing it right, but pretty much or probably looked like something from Star Wars, where they're riding it like a horse, but it's like a weird like humpback lizard,
like a wampa, basically.
Wampa. A lizardy wampa.
Yeah,
that's exactly that's what I'm going with. So, yeah. So I saw that, and I realized that there was something in my story that I had written at that point that looked like that. I was just like. I was like, okay, I think he'd be a good fit for that. So I started reevaluating that, because sometimes as a writer, you do like look at other artists and like, oh, I would love to work with them, in some way, somehow, or make a note of it. Like, one of the guys who did our prints, who was very kind to do it, Gavin, I hope I'm saying this, Goodry. I'm going to feel really bad if I mispronounce that. But Gavin, he did one of our prints, and it looks amazing. It has a hint of Mike, not Mike. He sadly passed away a few years ago. Wendigo. Yeah, but the way he draws kind of big creatures and humans, and he does. It has that charm to it, but he also has a weird Chris Samney charm to him too. And I made a note to it, like, after I worked with him, like, I asked him for like a price check, just because I said, I know this will change at some point, but if I ever want to work with you, what is your, because I just don't know what the story is yet, kind of thing. But yeah, so you do that, as at least on my end. You go through and you just touch base with writers or artists and see, like, because you're interested in working with them. And sometimes, sadly, budgeting comes into this kind of thing. How will that play out? What you need to get that in gear to work with them, because you want to work with them. And if not, you put it into you still want to work with them, but maybe further down the line, rainy day kind of thing. So,
sure.
So With Nil, though, that, I mean, same kind, so different kind of way happened with Nil, which is I made a note of like, oh, I want to work with that artist. I don't know if it was with Boondoggle right away, and then I saw something else that just inspired me to go, oh my God, you know, now I think he actually might be the artist to work with me.
You know, putting together Kickstarter is difficult, to say the least. It's literally a full-time job.
Yes.
I have gone through a couple myself. I know many others have been way more successful than what I'm doing. Looking at your Kickstarter right now, it's going fairly well, to be honest, and that's awesome to see. So, I mean, talk about the pressures of Kickstarter, and is it the first one that you've done?
So in terms of crowdfunding, I've done 3 overall, this being my 3rd. Well, technically I've done 4. I want to, full disclosure. So for UTMNT, I did one for a reprint of issue 1.
Okay. And
that was successful. It felt like it was very hard because I felt like we didn't reach our goal until like maybe a day or 2 before. And so it was kind of a nail biter. And then I thought, you know what, I think, we can fund issue 2. It's smaller amount of money, whatever. And so I put that out there, and that was not successful. And both of those were on Indiegogo. And then my 3rd one was for my podcast. It was one of those things where I was just looking at the numbers, and my wife and I are trying to save up for a house and try to save up for whatever. And so, because I actually have 2 podcasts that I produce myself. One of them is The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky, seen here on this lovely shirt. And then the other one is a podcast called Opposing Roles, which is an RPG actual play podcast.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's an almost actual play, just because if there's too much table talk, that's not really important. Some of that stuff can be funny, but sometimes I feel like, it might, sometimes when I listen to other actual play podcasts, if there's too much table talk and it's more inside joke things, it doesn't serve what you're there to listen to sometimes.
Good for a show like Critical Role, but not so good for another show.
Kind of. And with Critical Role too, like, I feel like, if you watch their early stuff compared to now, like the way they handle themselves, they don't talk over each other too much. They sometimes talk over each other, but they let each other. So they have inside jokes that are inside jokes that were created within the show, not like before the show started, kind of thing. Like they've moved. I don't know. It's like they've moved away from that, or we've moved with them enough to know where that is. And so, if we get to that point, that would be fun. That would be cool. But that thing that happened like 2 nights ago at a party or something, that me and the other players were hanging out at, get that joke, and then we have to explain it. It's just, so take it out.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And there's some table talk left in there, to be very clear, especially if it's pop culture based. But yeah, like, it's a lot of fun, and we're working on season 2 right now. And the Kickstarter for that was to fund both podcasts to help with editing and whatnot. So, and it was nice. And when that was successful, I realized, I think I could do Boondoggle this way too. And looking at the financials initially, being that I'm saving up for a house, my wife and I are trying to start a family. For me to get the pages that I have done, that has taken almost a year and a half of just scraping money and like putting in little whatever. So I realized that if I want to get this done, I need to go big or go home kind of vibe from it. And also, there's a wonderful gentleman called Bob France. I hope not like France the country, like Frantz. He's the guy behind Metal Shark Bro.
Oh, okay. And
Monty the Dinosaur, and I think the Kickstarter he just did was Ninja Nuns. Very great guy. I've had him on my podcast once or twice. Very gregarious and a lot of fun. But he did, I think he spoke at something or online, and he was talking about how Kickstarter, it's getting harder to just do one-off issues. Like, you kind of have to do the arc, like a part of the arc, or like a graphic novel, technically a trade paperback, to get any traction. Because if you are successful with 1 issue and then do 2 issues, maybe they don't want to come back for issue 2 because they didn't feel the first issue went anywhere, or you know what I mean? It's a problematic thing. And so I had to make another decision too, that fed into my decision too, which is, if I do this first issue as just a one-off issue, I can, with hope to a second one, what if the returns may not be as big. And I love my own stuff and I want other people to get, but you have to look at that too. Yeah, I feel like realistically, if I give you the first complete full chapter, you would be like, cool, I kind of want to know where this is going to go. But if I give you like 20 pages of that chapter, you'll be like, I feel this feels incomplete. Like, well, and it's like, well, yeah, you're right. It kind of is. So yeah, it's a weird thing. And so that goes into some of that decision-making process too, which is in itself equally frustrating.
Well, I mean, it is very difficult as well too, because you have people with short attention spans that don't consume media as much as say what we do. Like,
True.
I've just gotten back into reading like mangas and all that other stuff online, and it's like I miss this stuff. I miss having time or setting time aside to read through what I like to read or to find new things. And so for me, it's always been about, if I'm going to back something on Kickstarter, I want to make sure that, one, I know who the creator is, or their artwork and writing is strong enough that it interests me. And I've consumed a lot over 12 years of doing interviews. So to look at your book on Kickstarter, just to kind of tie things together, it really came to me as, I love the concept, I love the characters, I love the artwork. I know Nick is a solid writer. I know he has a good backing for what he's done, and I've enjoyed his other works as well too. So I have no problem dropping like $10 for a digital copy of it, because it's something I will read over and over again. And one, I'm also trying to get rid of some stuff behind me as well.
Physical media, you love it, but you also are just like, I don't have room in my house anymore. It's the old George Carlin bit, which is like, you know what, you have an apartment to put your stuff, but then you get too much stuff, so then you got to get another house to put your stuff. Yeah, right. And then you know what, that house not big enough. Why? Too much stuff. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, and I get it completely. Being that I live, my roommates were living here, and they've given us like a massive discount on rent per month. That way my wife and I can put some money away for a house and pay off our debt. Really awesome. But it's the same kind of thing, is that half of our stuff is in storage, but you know what, because we're living here, we're also accumulating more stuff, and it's kind of, we're breaking at the walls kind of thing. And it's just like, do we really? I'm to the point now, and I'm a big physical, I don't know why, I like holding a physical DVD in my hand, a Blu-ray, something, but I'm getting to the point now where it's just like, if it's a big movie, like a Marvel movie, like, then I want the Blu-ray. Yeah. But if not, I can stream it. I buy it digitally. I'm good. And my other fear with buying stuff digitally is that, because it happened to a few people on Apple and I think Amazon too. It's all in their fine print, which is, if they go, you know what, we don't, the distributor is saying it's not available in the store anymore, they can pull it from your library. And that is just like, no, I paid $9 to own that digitally. You do not take that. And of course, I think people complain there, we're sorry, here, have it back, but it's no longer in the store. And it's just like, but they could still do that, and really, if they wanted to enforce it. And so that's why I'm just like, my precious DVD. But at the same time, I'm also like, I need to save space. So I get it 100% on that, 100%.
Being a geek that we are, being the geeks that we are, I should say, and being in the forefront of interviewing people of the creative nature and of the geeky nature, our passions are always going to coincide with each other. We're passionate about who we talk with. We are passionate about what media we consume, and we have a hard time of letting things go.
We so do. And it's, it's one of those things too. Like, again, I said, you and I were talking before, and I have addictive personality to some stuff. Yeah. Obviously, I love the cake. But no, seriously though, like, it's the same kind of thing with some of that other stuff. Like, you don't want to get rid of, this one. Like, I bought a DVD that I saw was on sale for like $4.99 digitally. I could add it very quickly, and then I could sell this DVD because it's just taking up space. Yeah. Right. And I was just like, yeah, but like, it's like one of the 4th DVDs I ever bought. Like, there's now some weird sentimentality that my brain's trying to create logic for, and it's just like, no, stop that brain. Stab. Like,
don't make me stab you with the Q-tip, brain.
$20.
Donuts.
It's a donut.
I don't know if you collected things in like, I used to collect baseball cards and stamps and all this other stuff way back when. So it's like the same thing. Like, so at some point you say to in your life, I really don't need this, or
yeah,
it's tough but it's as we get older, it's like, oh, I remember reading this when I was doing this, or it's.
So do you guys celebrate, I mean, I know you guys celebrate Christmas, but like, do you guys celebrate something? And to be fair, I never celebrate this on my end, but my wife did. Something called St. Nick's Day, where you get like little knickknacks and stuff for each other on December 6th.
Nope.
Put it into a stock.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't either until I met my wife. Oh. My wife's a big thing. It's like, well, you get little knickknacks and stuff. Sometimes it's candy, little small, stuff. And you put it into the stocking, and technically it's the stocking stuffer stuff. Mm-hmm. And you give it, and sometimes, you can put a DVD or a back book. Cool. But like, I remember, God love her, and to be very fair, I'm very thankful that she did this, but also I haven't used it yet. Like, it's in storage, but she bought me like a Mad Libs for Ninja Turtles.
Cool.
It is cool, but like, and part of me, like, if you asked me 10 years before that, I would walk by the store and be like, I need to get me some Mad Libs with Ninja Turtles on it. But now I'm just like, do I need that? Do I want that? Like, it's a weird kind of thing, because your younger self, of course you want it. But it's like, where am I going to put that? Really? Like, yeah, it looks like a notepad, but like, I have a lot of space for other papers that might be a little bit more important than a pad for Mad Libs. Also, do they have this digitally? Like, what? Yeah, it's
a weird dynamic that we do live in.
Yeah.
I can't let you go. I mean, we're halfway through currently, so I want to talk about podcasting, of course, because that is something that we talked about briefly when I had you last on as well too. I think we were talking about the good, bad, and geeky or something like that. In the 6 years, though, you've created other works like you mentioned previously. Is the good, bad, and geeky still ongoing, or like talk to me? What do you have that's ongoing that we can talk about?
So I guess when I say ongoing, I treat Good, the Bad, and Geeky like a TV show. Mm-hmm. In terms of that, I take seasonal breaks. Sadly, the seasonal break this year has been kind of more of a, like, well, because so it's really funny. When I started the podcast with my friend Jim as the Good, the Bad, and the Geeky, because originally we did a podcast, recorded it. Well, we started planning it at the end of December or November, December of like 2005, called The No Name Show. We recorded it, I think, in February. So that's why I consider the show was created in 2005. But like, that mutated into the Good, the Bad, and the Geeky. And at first it was us trying to talk about TV news, with me more wanting to talk about movies and Jim wanting to talk more about TV, but really anything geeky. But literally it kind of devolved into like a morning radio show kind of vibe, which we also loved too. We loved doing the weird sketches and bits and all this and that and impressions and whatnot. But at the same time, there's a part of me that always wanted to keep talking about movies and occasionally TV shows. And so the show has evolved over the years, but the one thing that's been consistent is we take like seasonal breaks. Nice. And I would say the last 2 to 3 years, we've really gone into leaning hard into, I think, what my initial vision of the show always was, which was to have us talk like one subject for the entire show kind of thing. With a different set of guests from the local Ohio theater improv scene, which is nice too, because you're getting different perspectives. And it's all old friends stopping by to give you an update on their lives, what they're there to talk about, but also like, hey, we saw this really cool or possibly bad thing, let's talk about it. But with the pandemic hitting, it kind of, because usually we start back up in March when the big movie, like the Marvel movies and the summer blockbusters start hitting. And with this year, it kind of halting everything, even though the Zoom has been really helpful with doing other, like recording podcasts and doing stuff like that. And as an audio guy, I love it too, because if you, for you Zoom podcasters out there, if you didn't know this, if you save the files to your computer, it will multi-track the audio. So if it breaks up, it breaks up on your end, maybe because you're talking over each other, but it might be clear on their track.
Oh, nice.
yeah, so it's helpful during editing too. There's a lot of good things, and I was just like, but there's not a lot of movies coming out in theaters. And then also I realized I just want to take more of a time to recharge and A, focus on Boondoggle, but C, well, sorry, A, work on Boondoggle, B, get season 2 of Opposing Roles edited and in the can. And then C would be that one of the things that I hate doing is that when a season starts, there's always 1 or 2 weeks that we miss, maybe 3 at the most, and that drives me up the wall. Because, well, I'm of that visage, like if you update every Friday, I want you to update every Friday, and that I apply that to myself. So when the season started, that was a big thing for me, is that what if we use this time right now up until possibly next year, we record a bunch of episodes that they're locked and loaded, ready to go.
Just
right. So that way, if there is an off week that we do, we can then drop that in. That way we can, because usually what happened is with GBG, a movie would come out Friday. We would have it scheduled to talk about, Monday or Tuesday, but it would be out by that next Friday.
Right.
Especially if I was really passionate about the movie, good or bad, like whatever I thought about it, I wanted it out there. So A, it's fresh on people's minds, and it becomes more work for you if you have to follow like ones that release digitally and then release it and all this other stuff. So for me, it was really about getting things like recorded that we can talk about and then release them. That way there's a nice steady stream of stuff to release. And if, silver lining kind of thinking, if we do enough of them, we could keep going all year round. So there might be season breaks that only are like a month long. And then you can, right. And that's the concept of that. So that's what's going on with GBGs. Like we recorded 3 or 4 so far that we have sent to the editors to edit. Because luckily I have an editor. I have 2 editors right now, Will from Audacity, and then Kat, who I don't know what her official, if she has a company that she goes by for editing purposes, but Will's, and she's helping me out with Opposing Roles. And so Opposing Roles, it kind of was supposed to be out next season 2, but what happened was Will got caught moving. Also, they're, I think, slowly going under more of a lockdown over there again. Boris is putting them through the ring again. It's kind of what's happening here in the States. People aren't following the rules or whatever, and so it's kind of like a 1-2 punch. Where he got stuck moving. It's hard to get his stuff in and all this other stuff and to edit the show. So and that's when he got Kat in to help me with Opposing Roles. And Kat's been doing a bang-up job. And so, as a matter of fact, I've listened to 5 of the first 5 episodes of season 2 so far, and they're great. I can't wait to get them out to people, but I want to make sure I have maybe 10 more, not 10 overall, 5 more episodes edited before we start releasing them. That way we give the editors plenty of time, because sometimes, man, I love role-playing games and I love editing sometimes, but listening to some of that, especially if people are talking over each other, and it's a lot of work. And so, you got to give them time. And one of the things we did in the first season, and you might not, I think you would appreciate it, other podcasters might appreciate it, but I said, let's do a previously on, and then actually have a clip from the last episode or episodes prior with plot points. You know how hard it is to edit, because then you have to go back and listen to that audio. And so technically you're editing for 2 things. You're editing for what you think the plot is, because, Will and Kat don't know what the plot of how it turns out, right?
Right.
And they're editing it, or they have to listen to all that and then go back and edit it.
Yeah, it's tough.
Right. That's why season 2, I was like, we don't maybe have to do a previously on every episode, or it can be previously on and I just go, things happened and this is what they were. You know what I mean? We don't have to make it as complicated. But for the first season, if you listen to that was really, it was good theory and concept, but it's really time consuming. And oh man. So if anyone else out there does stuff like that, God love you. But yeah, so this season we're approaching things a little different for season 2, but it's those are 2 things I have going on. I'm currently in so my friend Jim, who did Good, the Bad, and the Geeky, he was a fan of the Thrilling Adventure Hour,
which was what? And
and he realized that there was a kind of a vacuum for consistently performed live radio shows. that would then be put out as a podcast. And so he's like, let me fill that void. And he did really well with it, in my opinion. It's All But In Radio Hour. There's a bunch of segments in the show. You can find it. It's allbutdonradiohour.com. I'm only like a cog in the I'm a cog in the wheel of the whole thing, really, because there are other amazingly talented people, Shane Stefanchek, Katie Boisonot, Joe Morales. These are other names that might not seem familiar to you, but if you go to the website and check them out, Dallas Ray, Chase McCants, these are people that are just so talented. They're my troop members, my co-stars. Nice. They're amazing. But you'll hear silly voices like this is Captain Richard D. Kake of the Starship Thrifty. Too Fast, Too Furious. We're in a war with the come on, stuff like that. There's a time machine that I do called Tim, which is a weird mix of the hedonism bot from Futurama mixed with the commander or Dudley Do-Right's captain from Dudley Do-Right. Mixed with sometimes Pinky, but I've kind of weaned it off of that. Mixed with, I think, Mark Hamill's Time Machine from Time Squad. It's like, oh, hello, everybody. My name is Tim, which stands for Technology for Innovative Movement. Oh, I'm Tim the Time Machine. Oh, yeah. So, so doing voices like that, man, it's a lot of fun. With COVID right now, the pandemic happening, we're doing everything through like live streaming. So if you join their Patreon, you can get some cool stuff too. And just to throw out there, because I am a bit of a whore for my stuff too, gbgpodcast.com, the good, the bad, and the geeky, and opposingrollspod.com. And it's rolls as in ROLLS, like rolling the dice. Because sometimes when you play an RPG game, it's based on the opposing rolls of the dice. Yeah. And with GBG2, I'm trying to put everything under a Patreon. All my stuff under one Patreon. That way you don't have to do whatever. And so it's $5 a month. You get tons of classic UTMNT stuff. You get classic episodes of The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky that maybe are not necessarily representative of what the show is now, but have early hints of what the show was, that kind of thing. And then possible future stuff will go there as well for opposing roles. So if we ever do like episodes in advance that we have done and ready to go, they would probably be on the Patreon first. So we're gearing up into that too. So yeah, I'm really excited.
I should do something like that. Two Geeks Talking, because my archive got wiped from TalkShoe, and because that was my old archive. Luckily, I still have all of the files because I'm a IT guy, so I back up everything on multiple hard drives. And so literally like episodes with Phil Folio from one of my first 10 episodes with Phil and all that stuff. We had Phil Folio on the show, and it was like, you can't find that anymore.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, you totally should. Because it was one of those things too. I was looking at, one of the mistakes it's one of those things you learn as a creator. You sometimes learn as you go. When I first did Patreon, I was kind of treating it like Kickstarter, which is like, if you join for 5 months for this long, you get a thing. And it's like, no, that's not how Patreon works. It's like you're removing the curtain back to maybe older archive stuff. You know what I mean? Stuff that they have constant access to that you shouldn't be getting extra stuff. You know what I mean? You can, but it shouldn't be like after so many months. It should be you pay right from the get-go. You get that offered to you. Right. It should be, so at least that's how I view it. There are other people that can do that stuff and they do okay with it, but to me that's not what Patreon's about.
You want someone to continuously support your work because they enjoy what you're doing,
right? And so like I don't want the promise of like 10 months from now, if you back us for $1, you'll get a t-shirt. I feel like that's kind of counterproductive, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For you and them, because now they have to worry about, am I going to get my t-shirt? And they might forget about it. So if they do remember it after the fact, they're going to be mad that you didn't remember. You know what I mean? It's frustrating for everybody. It's more work for you as the Patreon creator. I just don't really, and thing is that's how I was doing my UTMNT Patreon. And so I kind of, when I started coming back to it and I started re-cataloging, like adding category tags to all the UTMNT stuff and realizing how I was going to put stuff on the Patreon and how I was going to tag it, I kind of got like I don't know if it was age or what. I just realized like, oh, I probably was not doing that correctly. Maybe I should approach it from a different angle. But yeah, man, this is just me talking. I would definitely do that. I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah.
For your archive stuff, and
Yeah, so much, just so many, and it's all audio too. So we're like.
Oh, well, and that's what's great, man. You have an update schedule now on Patreon. There you go. Like you can update one new classic episode a week or a month or something, and you're good for a long time.
Act now, and I'll throw in this Ginsu knife.
Well, right, and that's great too about Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter. Sorry, is about Patreon. Is you can do stuff where it's like, if I get so many people backing us, or Patreons, or if I get so many. Make so much, I can maybe release like 10 extra episodes or something like that, or I mean, there's multiple things you can do for the Patreon that you can set goals that will help, that can be something that you give out to the patrons and stuff like that. So it's kind of neat. I dig it.
It was funny because one of my we're getting off topic, but I'll reel it in either way. But one of my fans from a long time, I was trying to go back to the archive, and this was a couple of years back, and all I see is from like 2018 on. I'm like, what?
Oh my God. So that's how you found, oh my God.
It's like 10 years of content was just erased. And I think TalkShoe went through a phase or Blueberry is the parent company, went through a phase where they went through all archives, and anything with swearing or anything along that line, they just wiped completely. So I had I had over 500,000 downloads plus of my content, strictly audio, and they just wiped it.
Well, when we did the early days of GBG and No Name Show, which is what the podcast was before it evolved into that, we did it on TalkShoe recorded live. I like, right when you said that, I was getting flooded of memories, and but they did that too, because for those first few episodes I could always go back to that and refer to that, and mine's gone too, and luckily I have one or two of them saved, but they're saved in different hard drives and stuff like that I haven't utilized in a while. But no, I mean, I understand, man. Like it's so cool, and you have way more than me.
But some of the creators I've interviewed in the past, and I'm not trying to make this about me, please
tell me more about you.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding.
It's me. It's all I talk about. Jan. Like, but no, some of the creators are dead. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's one way of saying that. Well, they're all dead, Jim. But no, I get it though. Those are people that they've passed on, and so it's like a record of their history. Yeah, man.
Yeah. It's like one blip. It's like, anyhow. We're not trying to get morbid here. We're trying to be light-hearted. But yeah, it's a shame when your creativity is just gone from the internet.
Yeah. Well, what was it? So, my wife and I, to make things more, because nowadays, because of everything going on, especially with the political climate, like I feel like no matter what side you're on, it's just like it's a barrage of stuff. And so now, like, if you 5-10 years ago, I was like, let's watch Game of Thrones, and let's watch all these dramatic shows, and now I'm just like, can we just watch 30 minutes of comedy, or with maybe some darkness or whatever thrown in, like 30. So we were watching Schitt's Creek, and that was a thing where Moira is trying, she's like, there's a scandal they think is happening. She thinks it's like because her nudes have leaked online, but the thing is that no one has her nudes, and she gets upset that her nudes are not online. It's so you're just kind of like, yeah, that stuff's not online anymore. Like, why is it not? Like, why is it can't be found? And it's granted, that's an extreme case, but like
well, let's rectify that situation.
Well, yeah, that's what she tries to do at the end of the episode. She's like, sorry, spoiler alert, I'm so sorry, but she's just like, yeah, because she can't find the pictures, and I think her husband Johnny, the great Eugene Levy, he's like, honey, every day I took one from a vacation we had in '87. It's there in my folder. I look at it every day. I love it. And she's like, great. And she pulls out the computer, like, how can we get this online? And it's like a Polaroid. It's like, you are going about this the wrong way. Like,
I mean, that's just Eugene Levy, and that Dan Levy, his son, and all that stuff. That cast just did an incredible job with that show. I mean,
so I do have a question, because we watched a documentary on the finale, even though we didn't watch the show first, which I know is ass backwards. But was Dan Levy like an MTV VJ up there in Canada?
Yeah, he was. I don't know if he was a VJ, but he was. He was an interviewer of celebrities, similar to what a lot of like he did like a Ryan Seacrest type thing on red carpets, and he would interview people and all that other stuff.
Okay, and well, they mentioned that very quickly, very, very quickly. It's one of those things where I forgot about it till just now, but it was like I should look that up, and then I forgot about it, and then
there's a good episode with First We Feast, the Hot Ones YouTube channel, where he did a show with Dan Levy. So if you're interested, he had some really good questions in that one as well too.
But can we just point out how good of an interviewer Sean Evans actually is, and has no right to be?
Yeah, it's
like
he has too good of a staff behind him as well too for that.
So MadLab, I also am an ensemble member at MadLab. Go to madlab.net for all you people out there. Matter of fact, some of the Halloween sketches that we did, because of the pandemic, we recorded them safely, of course, and we're releasing them slowly online instead of doing a live show.
Nice.
And one of the ones I wrote, and I think it got kind of, it was a little bit too technologically hard to do, was I wrote a Hot One sketch where, oh Jesus. So it starts off with an alien chasing, and I even put in there too, like, it's in darkness, you shoot it really well, like it's a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And he chases this girl in, and you realize it's a black box theater, which MadLab happens to be, so yay, budget stuff. And you realize, and all you need is a table, and literally the alien from Alien walks in on a Hot Ones episode, and Sean Evans comes out, whoever plays Sean Evans, he starts interviewing the alien. and it's this big thing, and I one of the things that I always love of it happens almost every episode is like, that's a good question, how did you know that? Like, it's always, and you're just like, Jesus, again with the how good is that question? I get it. Yeah, but it's
oh my God. You've done research on the guest, and you've really researched into him. And now, but to be honest, a lot of his questions are they are well done, and it's great production value. I mean, I love the simplicity of it, and I'd love to be on that show just because, but I'm not famous enough. So
do you do hot stuff? Like, can you do hot stuff, or is it like, oh my God, that's terrifying for you?
So for me, there's a video online, if you search YouTube, called Kurt Drinks Dragon's Blood. Dragon's Blood is a... So I used to work at a call center, and one of our sister call centers was in the Philippines, and so our supervisors would go to the Philippines and train the workers there. So he brought back a bottle of 2 million Scoville units hot sauce. And the thing is, he was handing out toothpicks. And he said, okay, you take a dab and you do it, and away you go. And I'm like, give me a shot. So he took a small drinking cup, cut the bottom off it, filled it to the top with hot sauce, and I downed it in one shot in the videotape. It's killed all my taste buds for hot stuff, so nothing I eat that's hot is actually hot to me. So here's the downside to that story. I was in the toilet for 6 hours, and I'm also lactose intolerant, so I had chocolate milk as well. No. So that was a good time.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so here's something else that I don't know if you noticed this about Hot Ones too, but just to think about. So I as a geek, I will watch. I don't know why but even though it's like mostly, and I say this with love, but for the big celebrity interviews, they're being asked the same questions over and over and over again. So they kind of have a, you know what I mean? So like if you watch one interview with like Scarlett Johansson for the Avengers, she's going to have a similar answer. Like she has it like trained and programmed what she's going to say if you watch another interview. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, like Ali Plum from BBC Radio, I love his interview. Will ask some of those same questions, but he'll spin it just enough way, or he adds a little bit like, I know you've been asked this before kind of vibe to it, and it seems to make them more chill about it. Yeah, or they don't give exactly the same kind of whatever. Anyway, I started noticing some of these actors would go on Hot Ones, And I also noted, and because they would do press days, I know how press days work. It's kind of, for those who are not initiated, if you ever watch the film Notting Hill, that's a pretty good idea of what is a press day. You go to a hotel, you have a room set up, and it's literally like almost all day long. It's like 8 hours of just people asking you questions. Now imagine they're asking you the same question over and over and over again. And if for whatever reason, if you have a bad day, you can have moments like Ben Affleck has, where he's which in retrospect is really funny, but I feel there's a part of me, being that I know how that stuff works, I felt really bad for Ben Affleck when that happened, because I was like, man, he might have had a bad day. Maybe I think he was publicly having issues with his wife, now ex-wife at the time. You know what I mean? Like, there could be a number of things going on. I'm gonna let Henry take this and just zone out for a bit, because he probably thought coverage was not on a 2-shot, probably a 1 on Henry. There's multiple things that could be happening, and that's the thing that people don't understand about actors, is they have to be on all the time when they're in those situations, because or if not, you get a Ben Affleck situation, sad Affleck. So anyway, you get these things where they do that, and I started noticing that, and as a matter of fact, I really noticed the Scarlett Johansson one, and I wanted to go back, and I haven't done it yet, but she was wearing an outfit that she wore for 2 other interviews I saw for Avengers Endgame. And then I started and a matter of fact, and this is the kicker. She said that the Sean Evans one was the first part of her press tour. She says something like that. It's in the morning, which means that if she does those other ones in the day, is she shitting herself? Because like I don't care Charlize Theron did a bang up job on that show. Like, the first time she did it all the way through, and I think because of that, she didn't cry. No. Like, usually people tear up. They get the whole, careful around the eyes. I don't think he did that. She was just like, bah. Yeah. But like, at some point though, her stomach might be like, oh, you go take a shit. Let's go. You're looking at Scarlett Johansson, that beautiful get up she has on, and you realize, oh my God, she had interviews after this. What the worst thing you could ever do?
I would fire your process to that thing. Oh, by the way, you have to do an interview with hot wings, and you have to eat like 10 of these. Vegan, by the way. Yeah, like that makes it better.
It doesn't make it. No, here's the thing. Vegan wings are great, but if it's the sauce that matters. Like, you could have a mild sauce and it could just hit you the wrong way. You know what I mean? And now you're taking 10 of them, and they're just getting increasingly. Their whole point is to fuck up your intestinal tract. Like, what? Yeah. And sometimes too, with those things too, I also get that sometimes publicists are trying to make everybody. And so sometimes things get moved around. So maybe if it was planned at the end of the day and it got moved to the morning the next, you know what I mean? There could be that too, but still, you're just like, you should have your whole day cleared out. Like,
Well, something's going to be cleared out, but it's not your day.
Put a bump. Be afraid to hit that drum.
I mean, the Gordon Ramsay one was actually was hilarious though.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like, Gordon, buddy, you can take that donut, and that's cool, but like, it ain't gonna save you, man. Like, come on, just.
If you look through the Wikipedia listing, or the IMDb listing actually as well too, for Hot Ones for that show, it's pretty impressive, the list that they've collected over the years too. So. Oh
my God, yeah, like like Joseph Gordon-Levitt has been on recently. I've not watched I didn't see the Dan Levy one. I need to go check that out, because I'm now kind of a Schitt's Creek, like, I'm in that mode right now.
Welcome to Canada. Here's your Schitt's Creek package.
Well, and here's the thing, as a fan of, like, of comedy, like, Eugene Levy, right? John Candy, all those guys, SCTV, right? And, so some of that stuff, but and I'm ashamed to say that when my wife's friend tried to, and that's my friend, sorry, try to get me to watch Schitt's Creek. Like, I think the second season was just starting to air, and the first season was on Netflix. Our friend Diane tried to get me to watch it, and I was just like, I love those two. They're wonderful. Like, I love the Christopher Guest movies, and they're always paired off, and they're always fantastic, and I love it. I just wasn't feeling it. And I watched it, I think, like 2 years ago. Forgot 2 episodes in. I was like, I don't get this, and I don't know why now it's like it's hidden right. And I love it, and now I'm catching up, unfortunately.
It's the same for any show. Like, Cobra Kai is now on YouTube type deal. I haven't seen seasons 1 or 2, and I love the Karate Kid films.
Oh yeah.
But it's only I just haven't gotten to that headspace to say, okay, I want to sit down and I want to watch this. It's the same for The Boys season 2. I've gotten into the first 2 episodes of season 2. Excuse me. I've gotten into the first 2 episodes of season 2. and I haven't finished the end of season 2 yet, or episode 2 yet, because I just, for some reason, my mind's like, I just don't feel like I want to watch this just yet.
It's the incessant Billy Joel, isn't it? That's what it is. You're either a Billy Joel fan, Kurt, or you're not. No, I'm kidding.
Who's Billy Joel?
Yes, that's great. Well, I'm not gonna lie. Just if you do happen to ever, it is a reoccurring theme for the rest of the season. So it's not just like they're playing a lot of Billy Joel this season. It's like no. It's there's reason why that's happening. Yeah.
All right, okay. So one of these news sites, like Comic Book Resources or whatever, on my mobile feed said, this main character is now switched over to the corporation. And I'm like, thanks.
Oh.
You've just spoiled it for me. I haven't read the comic book. I was in at season 2, like episode 2. And I'm like, why? I get it that not all of us can watch it continuously like a Game of Thrones thing and whatever.
Right. So, no, I'm with you 100%. So here's the thing. I kind of like what I did earlier with Schitt's Creek. I will accidentally spoil something because I get really excited or whatever, and I'm talking about it. But there are other... Yeah, so I don't do that as much anymore, but I still get nervous at doing that. But I am way more cautious about... Or I try to be when I talk about some stuff because I don't want to spoil something for somebody. And there's a Facebook group I follow. If you're an animation fan, the website Cartoon Brew originally was started by a guy named Ahmed. I don't know his last name, and then Jerry. Oh, I know Jerry Beck because when he sold his portion of the site to Ahmed, I followed him to Cartoon Research, and so there's a Facebook group for Cartoon Research that Jerry runs. And occasionally some of the group members will post cool new things that interest them. And do you watch the new Ducktales at all, ever?
I haven't seen yet. I do want to watch it, but I love the old series. So if it's similar to this new one, then cool, I'll watch it.
It is. And just throwing out there, I mean, if you get a chance to ever read the classic like Carl Barks stories or even Don Rosa, I know Don Rosa has very much spoken out against the new DuckTales because a lot of people are saying it's like that. And I feel it is. I feel they are trying to do within reason the best they can. Because look, it's a Disney show and they need to play by the rules that Disney is giving them, which is you have to have the kids around, right? It just can't be 100% Donald and Scrooge all the time. Because that's when I watch the original show now, I realize that it's a lot about the kids. And sometimes, and Uncle Scrooge tends to be there, and then towards the end of the show, it just became more Bubba and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Launchpad, and not Uncle Scrooge, which made me kind of sad. But anyway, so you have to deal with that kind of thing. But I feel it is really well done. And one of the things they're doing is they're throwing a lot of nods to the Disney afternoon in there.
Nice.
And some guy recently posted an image of a character who shows up that I would have never in a million years expected to show up in the Darkwing Duck reboot that they're kind of doing in the show.
Nice.
And I was like, you know what? I'm glad I saw this episode first before I saw that because it's one of those things in Facebook. You attach the image. It wasn't even posted in the comment section.
Yeah, it's just like a link and attach that image or whatever.
Well, I think he took a screen grab from his phone and posted it directly into his post. So you see it, and I was just like, I think I don't try to do this often, but I made a comment. I was like, just throwing this out there. I'm glad I saw this episode first because I would have been really mad that you spoiled this for me.
Yeah.
Because there was one or two other people then that posted anything that's like, I got spoiled. I wish I didn't know that going in. And I'm like, I understand. But I feel like the media does that a lot today. It's a movie that if it's ever on and I start watching it, I have to watch the rest. I have to watch the rest of it play out. Megamind by DreamWorks.
I haven't seen that one. I know Will Ferrell's in it, voicing it or whatever. And
do you remember the trailer at all?
Barely, because I have an issue with Will Ferrell just in the sense that his stuff is really played out, and I avoid his stuff.
Okay, well, if you ever would happen to watch it, then the fact that you don't remember the trailer, there's a twist, and I don't want to ruin that for you, but they ruined that twist in that trailer. Like it wasn't like a trailer 2 right before the movie came out. It was always in there. And it just infuriated me because I remember I was watching the movie and, well, you probably do the same thing too. Well, where's that shot from the trailer?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like that shot from Rogue One where it just looks cool. Like, it's a heavy dialogue scene that's played up for laughs. Like, that has to be in the movie. Where's it at? It hasn't happened yet. hasn't happened yet. There it is. And then I just got so mad because if I didn't know that going in, that I would have probably been I would have been telling everyone, oh my God, you got to see Megamind. Oh my God, you got to see Megamind. And instead it was just like, I just had a hard time with that. And what's sad is that I did enjoy that movie. And cause I mean, now if I see it on HBO or something or on TV or streaming, whatever, and I start watching even a second of it, I go, well, I just got to sit down and watch the rest of this. I'm drunk. It's aggravating. If you haven't seen the movie or haven't seen the trailer and you do happen to want to watch it, don't watch the trailer. So,
but that's the problem with media these days. And
oh my God,
you know, I think it's a combination of a couple of things. You look at the old trailers from like the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they don't spoil it. There's very little that they do in those trailers other than date, movie name, a couple of cool action sequences or love interests or whatever, and you know, come see it in theaters today type deal, in a world where, you know, things like that. But nowadays, 2000s on, either it's because of the short attention spans of people or the fact that there's so much mass media out there, they will literally cram everything possible into a trailer. And so when you see a 2 or 3 minute trailer rather than like a 1 minute trailer or 30 seconds for that matter, teasers 20 seconds do absolutely nothing. I think that's pointless. But if you see a 1 minute trailer, at least they shouldn't spoil anything in that 1 minute. 2 minutes on, you're going to sacrifice a significant portion of what you're doing.
I do feel that, and here's the thing, I'm 100% in agreement of you. I do feel there are some companies that are doing it right occasionally.
Yeah.
I know the Marvel movies tend to do a decent job for the most part.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Godzilla fan, and I thought how they did Godzilla King of the Monsters was pretty boss.
Okay.
Because they didn't really spoil too much. Like, I think the constant theme of the trailers had always been like they played a beautiful classic piece of classical music. I think the first one did Debussy.
Yeah.
And they timed it, and granted they were all money shots, but like they have no context of what the hell's happening except for like Godzilla breathing fire. There's Mothra. There's Rodan. Oh my God, King Ghidorah and Godzilla are fighting off. Like, I mean, I can make the assumption that's probably towards the end or whatever, but it doesn't like it. But it didn't officially spoil anything beyond that, except, you know, Kyle Chandler going, "I'm not in Friday Night Lights" or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. I'm in a monster movie, and that's it. Like, and what's his name? Ken Watanabe says something like "Let them fight" or whatever, and that's the trailer, and that's okay. But when you have them like just like, I agree 100%. They just give way too much away, and because if you watch like trailers for Jaws, like I love Jaws, and I remember recently I rewatched the trailer for Jaws, and it was like, you know, you can't hide, you can't run. It's technically it's what we would call a teaser trailer today, and but that was the whole trailer. like no, or the scenes are completely out of context where there's no dialogue. Like, was it the old one of the? I think it was The Apartment. They just showed. Is it The Apartment, or maybe Barefoot in the Park? I'm thinking of with Fonda and he directed Ordinary People. Robert Redford. Yeah. I think it's Barefoot in the Park. Like, I watched the trailer for that, and like they barely have any dialogue in the whole trailer, and I think it's about like a minute and a half long. It's just somebody talking over. It's like, you'll love Barefoot in the Park, barefoot in a park, but in an apartment, but because they're barefoot and they're in love or whatever. Like
Robert Redford, Jane Fonda,
exactly. And you're just like, and it's a completely different vibe. And part of it is too, they're trying, because of the ADD that you talked about, they're trying to grab your attention with that headline, and sometimes it's just like, I agree. I am in 100% agreement of that. Like, or they're not crediting people when they do post stuff, which is another thing that's frustrating. Like, I follow Drew McWeeny. People might remember him as Moriarty from Ain't It Cool News. He had since moved on to HitFix, and I follow his stuff now, and he's a wonderful reviewer. I love his stuff. But apparently he talked about how, so I'm a little off on this, but I follow his Twitter, and that's where I'm getting this from. Like, really a day or two ago, he posted on his mailing list that something about James Bond might meet his last movie for this part of the franchise at home because of the whole pandemic thing. Like, they really are pushing it to be in theaters, but realistically, they might be better to have it at home so they can make more money off of it, because if not, they're losing money, which, again, you kind of understand.
It's the model,
but it's the model, sadly, that's happening right now. And somebody, I think, took that and ran with it and posted it on like a higher website, and they didn't credit him at all. And I think it was more like an opinion piece of, this is what I think is going to happen, this is why I think it's going to happen. It's ridiculous. And because everyone's just trying to get by, and it's frustrating that that's how they're getting by. Anyway.
So
sorry.
No, it's a good topic, and it's one that's been bothering me for a while now. It's just like, you put, like, I've produced films, I've worked on features, I've done shorts myself, and that's the one thing I hate. And this is why when Star Wars came out for the last 3 films, I purposefully watched maybe one trailer or whatever of the very first one, of episode 7, and I did not look at any news. I blocked everything Star Wars. I did absolutely everything in my power to not be spoiled, to the point that I said on Facebook and Twitter, if you spoil this for me, I will unfriend you, I will block you, because I do not want this to be spoiled. This is like my passion for consuming media. So anyhow, that being said, it's, they won't change unless the editors change it, unless the producers change it, and unless the executives say, hey, we need to release the trailer. Let's make this as vague as possible to draw interest. Everyone has a person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
That I look up to in general, or like people that I've directly interacted with, or both?
Let's go with both. It's a pretty broad question.
Sure.
But...
so there's a few people. In terms of my personal life, I would say both my grandmothers, who have sadly since passed for many years. My grandmother, Grandma Jake, grandmother on my mom's side, or my mom's mom, she just had a love for. She always seemed amazed by things. Like, I remember I was in high school and we were watching a clip of the Muppets, like classic Muppet show Muppets, and she would just go, I don't know how they do that. Like, she seemed and she was such a kind, lovely person, and it was just like a very childlike wonder. How do they do that? I don't. And I miss that. I miss talking to her a great deal. And then my other grandmother, my dad's mom, was very musical, loved music. And I think that's probably where my love of music comes in. I'm not entirely sure on that, to be honest. I think it's a bit of both. Like, she used to be a music teacher for the high school I eventually went to. And then my dad, he loves music. So I would hear classic rock and oldies all the time. So I felt very... I grew up with a lot of music in my house, and listening to many different kinds of music, being well versed and all that. So I would say those are two people that have directly impacted me in a good way. My wife is super. I've never had someone as supportive, just and emotionally there for me as she has been. So I can't have that go without saying as well. In terms of other people that have inspired me, Steven Spielberg, for sure. I love Steven Spielberg. Even when he doesn't do a great movie, there's still a lot there that you can look at what he's done in terms of shots and all this and that. Robin Williams is another one I think is very, because Robin's the first actor that I knew that could kind of do a little bit of everything. And I found out later, dude's a huge geek. He named his daughter Zelda because he loved playing the game Legends of Zelda, and he was very supportive of local artists and stuff like that. And he just had a good heart on him, it seemed. And he was honorable too. When you look into some of the stuff about him and Disney, about why he got mad at Katzenberg and Disney for the genie thing. Like, he was a man of his word. Like, you didn't keep your word, and I don't play the typical Hollywood bullshit rules. Like, you inspire to that kind of, you know what I mean, kind of thing. But yeah, matter of fact, there's a great podcast, if you ever, I don't know if it's still available or not. I think it is. It's by Stephen Tobolowsky. He's the guy from Groundhog Day. It's like, bing, that guy. Good character actor, been in tons of stuff. He's currently on One Day at a Time on Netflix, and now CBS maybe. But he talked about how there are people in your life that are angels, guardian angels, that help you out along your way. And he says you usually go through them in threes, 2 to 3s. And so for me, directly, I would say my grandmother's would be, and then my wife would be another one. So, but yeah, those are the people I think that are super helped me kind of who I am today. That was a good one, man.
Oh.
It made me get deep and wistful and stuff. I loved it.
I got 3 more.
All right.
From a professional standpoint, you are a successful Kickstarter campaign creator. You are a successful actor. You've done successful podcasts. You enjoy and are passionate about what you do as a professional person. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
That's a very hard question, and that's one that I think I will always struggle with. To me, I feel there's 2 things that we look for as individuals. We want to be happy in our normal, like, non-work life, and we want to be happy in our work life. And, you know, if I was able to do what I'm doing right now, writing and talking and all this other stuff, you know, for my full-time job, I think, you know, and here's the thing, maintaining it is a different thing altogether, and it's a whatever, but and there's sometimes a lot of luck that goes into some of that too. But, you know, in my mind, at least, I think I need to reach that level to be successful. But there's the other part of me. It's just like, I have loving friends. I have a loving wife. I'm doing things I love. They're not what I do full time, unfortunately, but I do it on the side, and it keeps me engaged in life and stuff like that, you know? So, and I am successful, but, you know, there's always the next thing that you're kind of looking for. And so, admittedly, that's something that I struggle. I think everybody struggles with that, or maybe in different variations or ways. But, so I would say I am, but I'm not. So yeah.
Reverse of that then is failure, and how do you deal with your failures?
Not well. But no, in all seriousness aside, the answer to that would probably be, I would say there's a hint of not well to it, but I'm also a very laid back guy. And so let me rephrase it this way. I am a kind of person that reacts in the moment to something. And then once I kind of cool down and calm down, I look at it as a responsible adult kind of thing. Or, you know what I mean? I kind of see everything, whatever, you know, and that's how I am with all things in life. So, you know, if my wife tells me something that's bad news, or my mom or dad or someone in the family gives me bad news, I react poorly right away. Like, it, you know, because I'm in the moment thinking, like, I'm more instant response kind of guy. And that can be problematic. And it's something I'm learning to deal with, is I have to sit there and go, take a deep breath, you know. For me, like, it's something that my wife and I like, if my wife would tell me something that I didn't love, whether good news, bad news, whatever it might be, I would be just frustrated in the moment. And, you know, and I would want to go, well, let's talk about this now. And she's much a very opposite person, which is, let's take time to think and gather our thoughts and reconvene at a later time. And you know, that's another reason why she's been so helpful for me, is that I'm trying to slowly and kind of getting to that point, but I still can sometimes be in the moment. So when I do fail at something, I can get very, you know, oh my God, why is this, you know, I can't believe this happened. Like, oh, I'm so frustrated and angry. And then once I think about it for a second, I look around and like, well, you overreacted just a little bit. You probably didn't need to do that. Maybe, you know, calm the fuck down. Like, take a chill pill, bro. You know, that kind of thing. Like, it's a weird thing. And so, I mean, I would love to answer you and say, oh, I handle failure gracefully, but I sometimes don't. Like, you know, and it's something that I always have to work on. But I will say this: the great thing about all failures is that if you do step away from the frustration that you feel in the moment, and you really do take them. And I have been lucky to do this. Once I've been frustrated with it, I then can step back and go, okay, why did this not succeed? How can I better myself from this? What lessons can be learned from this? And if you can't walk away from a failure learning anything, then that's a problem. And then that's an whole other set of can of worms. But I hopefully, you know, I don't handle it great, but I try to learn from it too. So
the younger generation is looking at your work either by your podcast or by Boondoggle or by whatever you've created in the past, and you're acting for that matter, and they're becoming inspired to become creative themselves, either in those areas or maybe something else completely. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
That's a great question. I've never asked that before. Okay, so I would just say do what you love. Follow what your passions are. And hopefully some of it is original stuff that you create, kind of thing, if that makes sense. But I would just say follow your passions, you know. And because sometimes, you know, like for example, I did a podcast. It's not going right now, but it's called The Magically Unauthorized Misadventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, because I learned that I can do Bullwinkle really well, and I can do two versions. I can do the movie version, which is a little bit higher pitched, and I can do the lower version, which is the original Bill Scott version. Hello there, Rock. And at the same time, I'm helping Jim occasionally at the time write Radio Hour. I'm occasionally, and I tend to write long, because remember I said earlier, I like a people talking, that's Bendis, that's kind of me, but I can go overboard. I can be lengthy and wordy like I am right now. And so I needed ways and exercises to cut down my scripts. And I was, at the time, Rocky and Bullwinkle was on Hulu, and it was one of those things where I would work a long day and I would watch Rocky and Bullwinkle or whatever TV or media, and sometimes I would fall asleep in the chair and then I would go up to bed. Well, I was like in one of those stages where I was half asleep and I was listening to Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle. I was like, oh my God, this is a radio show, but with poor animation. Like if you took the animation out, you would know exactly what is happening in that show, because the narrator is telling you that this time Rocky and Bullwinkle are walking across the land when, lo and behold, behind them, Boris and you're just like, holy shit, this is good. And so I started transcribing an episode and I saw how long it was. It's, at the time, Radio Hour was 12 to 15 pages long per segment. So like Universe Journey that I was talking about, where I played Richard Kake, those would be about 12 to 15 pages long. Oh my God. So I started writing it as an exercise, and then I realized, oh my God, I want to perform this. And so it was one of these weird things where it became a giant experience for me. How to get people to do, it was a little bit more hands-on for me, directing, producing the show, writing the show. Where it's all, what I mean? It became a learning experience, but that was a passion of mine. Doing that and learning, like I had a lot of fun doing that. I wouldn't mind to keep doing things like that, and maybe in a different way. So that was a passion of mine. So I would say always follow your passions. Like I love directing. When the first time I saw Jaws, had never experienced a movie that made me almost piss myself. Granted, I was a young kid, but almost, made me piss myself. But also like made me like love the characters, maybe hate the characters, made me felt sad that the character that I hated died. Like all these flood of emotions that like, you don't get when you're watching some Disney movies. Like you get sad that the mom and dad died, but you don't, it's harder to get a little bit more from that, at least for me as a child. And so it just blew me away. And so then I became really inspired by that. So that was my passion, is how are shots made? Well, he also cares about story. Well, how's a story set up? I'm passionate about, granted it was on a lot at the time, but I would, from Hanna-Barbera, which was pretty much all kids had back in the 70s and early 80s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s, and then classic Looney Tunes. And then you would get a reference to that. You don't know, like, who the hell's Jack Benny? Like, why is that a whole episode where they're mice? So you look it up, and back then you didn't have internet. You go to an encyclopedia, look up Jack Benny. Then you get clips of Jack Benny that they would show on TV at the time. Oh my God, Jack Benny's hysterical. Mel Blanc was, oh my God. And then you just start getting into that even more, and that's your passion, right? And so that passion led me to know more about Mel Blanc. That passion then led me more into who are the voices behind Animaniacs. oh my God, they do like tons of cartoons, like, and then you start voice chasing. And for me, that is what the passion is. So follow your passions. 100% is what it is. As long as it doesn't hurt other people, or doesn't hurt them or make them feel less than, then follow that passion creatively. I'm not a big fan of any passion, creatively or not, where it hurts or insults other people, like where you're punching up instead of punching down, or whatever that old Adam is. I'm not a big fan of that. Or if you do that to get more views creatively, I don't know, that feels kind of backwards to me. But I would just say, yeah, follow your passions, and whatever you love, keep doing it, and then because that will inspire something else, and then it'll just keep going.
I do hate to say this, but we're actually over our time, which is perfectly fine. Yeah. So, is there anything that I haven't brought up that, of course, you'd like to share? And what's your social media as well?
Yeah, sure. Well, I try to make social media a little bit easier for everybody. My Twitter handle and Instagram account is GoodBadGeeky. Admittedly, I don't post on Instagram all the time. I'm a little bit more all the time on Twitter. And when I do, I tend to just retweet a lot of stuff. So full disclosure there, but occasionally I will post other stuff as well. So keep that in mind. But it's Good Bad Geeky, no spaces, no underscores or anything. It's just Good Bad Geeky. And then I know we've talked about this before, but d4kstudios.net is my kind of where I talk about everything I've done previously. But my podcast, Good Bad Geeky, it's on an off season right now, but there are tons of past episodes up that you can peruse at gbgpodcast.com. Opposing Roles is at opposingrollspod.com, where season 1, where we do Star Wars role-playing game, is up. Season 2 is going to be Dungeons and Dragons. So if you subscribe now on Apple Podcasts or whatever fine podcast app or RSS feed aggregator that you use, that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to sharing that soon. And then I currently I don't produce the show, but I occasionally write, direct, and I all the time perform in it. It's All But Done Radio Hour. Found it. It's allbutdoneradiohour.com. And then, of course, Boondoggle, which you can check out on Instagram, or not Instagram. You can check out the links in the many places that we have that posted. The weird thing about Kickstarter is I wish they would give you just a direct link that you can give people. And they kind of do, but it's like a long Kickstarter.com / whatever. So, but yeah. So if you go to Kickstarter and just type in Boondoggle, you should be able to pull it up. And I do have a short link for it. Actually, yeah, I mean, I'll throw that out there real quick for it. That's a good point. I do have that. Sorry. It's http d4k.us / KS for Kickstarter Boondoggle 1, and that should also take you to the Kickstarter.
Well, as always, Nick, don't wait 6 years to come on the show to promote something.
Yeah, definitely, man.
I'd love to have you back on for sure.
Yeah, and also I need to get you on for GBG just because it's nice to have someone who has some filmmaking experience too behind the camera. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we talk about like, well, why do they do that? You know what I mean? And I can kind of theorize on why, but like I think that you're in the grinds of production more than I am as a wannabe kind of guy. Like you're in the throes of it, So it would be great to have that perspective too when we talk about movies or TV shows.
Hey, I'm always available to to go on to other shows and definitely.
Oh yeah, man!
Come on, I'd love it. I'd love to promote the show as well too. So, all right. Well, like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. Of course, Nick Arganbright from d4kstudios.net, talking Boondoggle, of course, was on the show. Again, I can't thank him enough. Great guy, great, wonderful talent, and support his Boondoggle Kickstarter like I did.
Thank you again.
Anytime. This particular episode you can, of course, find on our website, tgtmedia.com. You can, of course, find our YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/TGT Media. Yes, I know it says Kurt Sasso because it's linked to my email account, so I can't change it without people saying, what's Two Geeks Talking? So, is what it is. That being said, I am in the process of uploading my past 10 years of comic convention interviews from my old channel to this new YouTube channel. And I am also Talking, and I might take that idea actually from Patreon, like what Nick said earlier on in the interview, to maybe use those archive podcast episodes as maybe a Patreon thing. We'll see what happens. You can find me on social media at Kurt Sasso on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And of course, thanks for everyone for listening and watching. Tune in next week for another great interview on Two Geeks Talking, where everyone has a story to tell and it's up to me to bring it out. Thanks a lot. Hey all, Kurt Sasso here from Two Geeks Talking. If you like this video and these quick clips here, make sure you take a look at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TGT Media. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe as well. Hit the bell to make sure you get notifications, of course, from videos like this here. Thank you everyone for listening and watching over the years, and keep listening and watching for new and exciting interviews with talented and creative people in the entertainment industry. I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. Thank you so much.